In this series of founder profiles, we're going behind the scenes with founders who've built successful businesses in very different ways, shaped by how they think, lead, and sell best. Today, I have with me Jessica Mudditt, the founder of Hembury Books, which is a hybrid publisher in Sydney. Hembury Books authors retain their intellectual property, creative control, and full royalties. Jessica is the author of two memoirs, Once Around the Sun and Our Home in Myanmar. A Kathmandu to the Khyber Pass is coming in 2026 next year. As a freelance journalist of 15 years, Jessica wrote for articles for Forbes, BBC, CNN, GQ, Company Director Magazine, CFO Magazine, Westpac Wire, and Marie Claire, to name a few. She was accredited as a newspaper journalist in London in 2009 and spent 7 years reporting in Myanmar and Bangladesh. Based on our founder profiles, Jessica is what we call the humble host. These founders are great at building brands that create a feeling of safety and belonging. They're welcoming, grounded, and attuned to give people what they need and feel safe with. And their brands often grow through connection, care, and a genuine desire to create something meaningful with their audience, not just for them. And the biggest lesson for the humble host founder type in business is often that you can't take care of your business if you're too busy taking care of everyone else. So I'm very excited to dive into that with Jessica today. And the first question we're going to start with is, Jessica, on your website homepage, it opens with the message, "We strive to delight authors of all genres." So why did you pick this as your brand's core message? And what did you want people to feel or understand when they read and heard it?
It is a different approach to publishing. I don't think usually the author comes first. For us, the author is our client, and it's our greatest desire to create a book that sincerely reflects all their wishes, from the blurb to the cover design. We don't mess with the contents of their book. With traditional publishing, you get chosen and it would feel like winning the lottery. But once you're chosen, it can be underwhelming, because you're not given a seat at the decision-making table about your book. The publisher has acquired your book and they are investing in your book. They're taking on the financial risk of how many copies your book is going to sell. So they reasonably need to maximize their chances of selling many units of your book. So their expertise trumps an author's desire to have a certain cover or for their book to come out sooner rather than later. Our approach is author-centric publishing. And so we strive, I don't want to say, we're going to make your day or anything, but we are trying our best to make authors happy. And we can make authors happy if we listen to them and we allow them to retain creative control. We allow them to choose the date of publication and every aspect about the book, while providing professional guidance and answering every question that they might have, not just the production side of things, but also the emotional journey of becoming an author. Like, it can be terrifying and imposter syndrome all along the way. And so we want to have this kind of wraparound care. So we don't just pump out books. We have relationships with our authors and they grow into becoming an author and feel really confident. And it's always a journey for every author, and there's bumps in the road even after publication and things like that. But our main goal is for authors to come back to us and publish a second, third, or fourth book, or for us to be their publisher for their whole author career. And they would choose us rather than us choosing them, because we don't have a massive slush pile. We want to publish authors' books. That, to me, kind of sums up our approach.
That's so powerful and so reflects the humble host type. So humble host is like the nonnas of the business world. And it feels like you do that for authors, make sure they feel nice and safe and secure while they're going on this huge journey of everything that becoming an author includes.
Yeah.
So they don't just feel like their creative work is being taken away from them. They're invited into the process to become a part of it. So
yeah. And it's kind of, because, I'm an author, I'm a self-published author. So I loved the creative control that self-publishing provided me, but it was a solo journey and no one bought me flowers on publication day. No one celebrated. I mean, of course, family and friends do, but a professional relationship, like having a publisher, is different. So my goal is, what would I have loved when I published my book if I'd been chosen? And so we can replicate that. And actually, what you get nowadays, even with a major publisher, may not be the same because budgets are different than they were. It's a tight
Right.
industry, low margins and things like that. So we're trying to use our imagination to everything from social media. How can we champion our authors? They have a virtual launch on their day and we just go bananas on social media. And it's really exciting to share their joy. So sending out merch packs and things like that as well. I love author merch. So they have a tote bag that their publisher gave them and their friends can go, "What's that?" And they're like, "My publisher gave me this."
So I love how, so not only is your business model reflective of the humble host type of inviting authors in, but it sounds like the brand experience that you're creating as well is very much aligned with making authors feel special and welcome and part of the whole process.
Yeah, I hope so. That's the goal. And we're always tweaking what we provide to, what do authors most want? What do they ask us for? Then listening to that and responding to that. But it needs to be said that our authors are investing in the cost of publishing their book. And so they very, very much deserve to be treated very, very well. And I think there's a lot of stigma around business models in publishing. And I've heard it said that if a publisher asks you for a cent, you should run the other mile. But I think that's really old fashioned. It's like, if you had a pro bono lawyer, you'd be having legal aid. What you really want is a really good lawyer in your corner fighting for you. It's the same with an accountant. I would never take on the services of a free accountant. And I think the stigma that exists just perpetuates this old fashioned notion of needing to be chosen and being the passive author and kind of letting it happen to you. And the fact is that many authors will never be published if they wait for their life to happen to them, because the number of books being commissioned is just drastically fewer than there are authors who want their book published. So we're trying to change it in every way, but I really like this model. For me, it's great because authors also keep their intellectual property. They own it. They own all the assets that we create, and they keep the royalties for the lifetime of their book as well, which is a fundamental difference from the traditional publishing model.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think you've just said something so important in by investing in your own work and retaining control, it's a much better experience all the way around. So you're not sitting there losing hope and belief in how good your book is because nobody's chosen you.
I mean, that happened to me. I have cried tears. Over 10 years, my 3 books were rejected so many times. And you have the feeling where you're like, my dream is not going to happen in my life. And that's something I need to accept and move on. But there was something inside me that was like, nah, I'm not taking no for an answer. And then I was sort of a reluctant self-published author. I fell in love with it. I think that if this business model can sort of change perceptions, we produce really amazing books. Our authors are so intelligent. They're so original. The goal is to disrupt the publishing industry by doing it in a really strong way and being on the front foot. We're not masquerading as a traditional publisher. We're not trying to be what we're not. We're proudly hybrid, and we're proud of the fact that our authors are in control.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a different, like a clear way of positioning yourself in a market. So do you find with that positioning, when you set up your brand, did you know that you were positioning yourself in a gap in the market?
I did not know. I mean, I did not know the extent. I put up 5 ways I could help authors. I thought this business was going to be a ghostwriting business. The
Wow.
5th one was like, if you don't know how to get ISBNs, if you need some help with self-publishing, I can help you. And had the website made and put the call out on social media. Like, I've left journalism and now I've got Hembury Books. And 2 people on that first day contacted me. The first was Holly Dean Johns. Get this Facebook chat message from her saying, "Hi, I spent 7 years in a Thai prison for heroin, got a 31-year sentence, almost got the death penalty. I'm back out. I'm clean. I've had PTSD, but this is my manuscript and it's been rejected because I got out from prison too long ago." And I was like, let's book a call.
Oh
So
my
it's my
goodness.
first client. And the second client on that day was a guy called Bruce Lowry, who was like, "Hey, I traveled around Australia hitchhiking in 1969. I've written like 100,000 word book, haven't been able to get it published. Would you be interested in taking a look?" And I was like, let's book a call. So that was a good early sign that there's a demand for this. And there's been a steady demand ever since. And I've realized that we haven't even begun to kind of dip below the surface of just how much demand there is. That the challenge for the business is finding those people and making them aware that we exist and that this is a way of doing it. So now that things are kind of set up better, there's people in place to do things. That's what I really want my next focus to be, is the SEO, the marketing and the advertising.
Yeah, that's a great way to go about it. In some ways, it feels like you're democratizing the publishing industry. It's a bit like YouTube, or concerts. Like back in the day, everyone went to AC/DC and it was the biggest concert and the only one that you went to. But now with YouTube and other channels, people can really niche down on their interests, and there's something for everyone instead of everybody just having to go to the mass market thing that is being sold.
Yeah, well, you took the words out of my mouth, because I'm always saying that we're trying to democratize access to being an author, because the traditional gatekeepers, when they close the gates, you have no way forward. I mean, you can self-publish, but it's overwhelming. It's lonely. It can result in a book that isn't the book that you wanted. So I don't think that that is the best experience, especially for someone who just wants to focus on their writing. They're not like me. I became obsessed with self-publishing because I had this latent desire to become a publisher, clearly. So yes, it is about democratizing access. But that said, it's not free the way that anyone can post content to YouTube, but it's a first step. And, the way that I hope the business grows is that we can make further inroads into that. But yes, if you look at other industries that have been disrupted, where new platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, anyone can post content and the best content rises to the top. You just need a phone and an internet connection. And with a publisher like ours, we are defined classically as a vanity publisher because we don't reject books. It's not our business model to reject books. We don't have a massive slush pile. We don't have forms that have like 50 entry points and take 7 hours to fill in. And then, you'll hear back from us in 6 months if we're interested. And then we might string you along and drop some breadcrumbs, and then your book still may not go ahead. Like, I had those kinds of experiences, and they're so demoralizing. So, some people kind of, poo-poo this business model, saying you'll just publish anything. What has surprised me and absolutely blown me away is the sheer level of quality of books that have come my way. And it's just amazing. I used to think that good writers were like 0.01% of the population, and everyone else, there's a part of me like we all didn't get chosen, right? But if you've got an amazing story and you're prepared to tell in an honest way, and you write it down in a simple, easy to understand way, it's just amazing. The goal is that if you want to be an author and you want to publish your books, you can. And I actually believe that if you're an individual who has a really strong desire to be an author, you should be an author, and that you have got talent. Because I know it might sound weird, but if you have this incredible burning desire to be something, you can write. And I haven't found that to be wrong yet. So, but it's also creatively, like, the future's going to be interesting, because I'm going to be presented with books that challenge me. I don't have to agree with the books that I publish, things like that. So we're going to go down some interesting roads.
You've got many adventures ahead of you. Yeah. So coming from journalism to moving into the business world, setting up your business, what has come most naturally to you as a humble host?
Well, it's funny because I have been a business and technology journalist for most of my career in different countries and stuff. So I have lost count of how many founders I've interviewed. And my favorite interview is a one-on-one with a founder. I just could listen to founders all day. Never realized that I wanted to be one. But I, have literally taken notes all along the way. But I was a one-woman show that whole time. It was just me and the laptop writing. I had editors. I was freelance. I was barely ever in-house because I hated working at offices. And I have to say, I hated working at companies in my 20s. I just found it often toxic, super boring. The jobs were not challenging. These were jobs I got out of uni. I wasn't stretching myself. I was just saving up to go away and travel the world because I didn't know what to do. But I loathed it. And then when I got to London, I worked at like a government agency and stuff, and I never took it seriously. And now that it's my business, I could not be more excited about the fact that we're getting an office. And my team members, they are excited to come. Like, they're going to have quite a long drive, but they're like, no, we're going to do it. I'm going to drive from, Bulli and stuff. And it's just amazing to me. So what's changed is I'm getting to choose with the people I work with. I've got ownership. I'm not being told what to do. I don't have someone breathing down my neck. And I actually love the collaboration because I love the solitude of being a writer and just doing an interview and then spending the whole afternoon just quietly writing. And I still love that. But actually, the collaboration has come naturally and it's fun. And I get a lot of satisfaction out of seeing what our team can do together so that we can delight authors instead of me shouldering the responsibility of trying to keep all the clients happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something generally I see building humble host brands is that they're good at bringing people together, creating a culture that everybody wants to be part of. And like you said, everybody's just like, I don't care how long I have to drive. I just want to come and do the thing with you. And then that sort of creates a life of its own. And I'm sure your authors feel that as well.
I hope so, because I keep saying to our authors, come visit us. It's going to be amazing. So we have to actually also get lots of work done. How great would it be for the author to come and sign their publishing agreement in person? We have that first kickoff meeting together and they get their Hembury Books swag bag. And then, they go home and hopefully feel really excited.
Yeah. So it feels like, I guess when you're publishing independently all on your own, like you said, you don't get any of that, but they get the actual being published experience where they get to come into the office and sign the things and
Some
like,
photos.
I'm a real published author.
Yeah, that's the plan.
That's beautiful. And in terms of you said like coming together and everything and having the office is great. And one of the things that you have to think of is like, we still have to get the work done. So my next question, like what's been the biggest stressor in running a business as a humble host type?
I mean, I can't deny the biggest stressor is cash flow, and it is just unrelenting for a new business. Like the business is 1 year old as a company, and I started it about 5 months before that with my sole trader ABN. So it's very new, and it is, it's like trying to give people more hours and invest more in the company and deliver a really good product. And to manage that, I don't have any financial background. I did not do a business degree. And so I don't know how to do modeling and stuff like that. So I'm getting some help now so that it becomes mathematical instead of my gut instincts, because that's a scary way to drive a business. And I've been very conservative, I have to say, because I know the invoices that are coming. I know when they're coming. I'm always looking forward, always with a dash of panic, which is like, we've got to make sure that there's a funnel of new leads coming in. And so what can I do to ensure that? But, in the early days, you're so busy doing so much of the client work that you only have so much time to generate new leads. And one of the reasons why I left journalism was a lack of control over my financial future, because as a freelancer, I've had editors just move to another publication and they just let you know that this is their last week and, here's the contact details of the new editor. And you're like, are they going to assign me work? And it's too scary. Like I'm a single parent and I feel like with this, no one can tap me on the shoulder and say, you're fired. I'm not going to shut my business down. So I feel like, yes, it's risky in the early days and it can be frightening. Like there's moments where it's frightening and stuff and you've got a lot of responsibilities. But we're moving in the right direction. And if I compare where we were last year compared to where we are now across, we've got 11 books in production at the moment. But will that ever leave me? I don't know whether that feeling will ever leave me, but I dream of having a CFO. That's for sure.
I think you're right. I don't know if that ever leaves us or if we just get better at managing it. So for the humble host, often they're really great at creating that culture, but one of the things that I often see them stress with is that data modeling side of things, like looking at conversion rates or financial models and that sort of thing. And it's so important, like you said, that in the beginning, we've got to do it all ourselves. But at some point, you can't keep doing the things that stress you out, or you probably will have that feeling forever.
Yeah. Yeah. This is not my strengths. And that's like an understatement that kind of makes me laugh. Yeah. But you have to do it. You have to do it as a business owner, because if I outsourced my financials from, like I was doing my own bookkeeping last year and stuff. Now I've got a bookkeeper and an accountant and stuff. You must do that. But at least I know how bookkeeping works, which I never did before, because I have to be able to interpret the P&L. Otherwise, I've got my head in the sand.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that something that happens so often is you feel so much more in control if you have an idea of what the standards are of the thing that you're about to outsource. Even if it's not expert knowledge, you basically get how it works.
Yeah. rudimentary.
And so, with your journalism background at BBC and Forbes, how has building your own publishing business been different from what you expected it to be?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would interview people who were successful and they would be looking back on their careers. And one of my favorite questions was always, what was the biggest early challenge that you faced? And so I've spoken to some unbelievable founders who have built empires about their origins, of how it began with an accident or something unfortunate happened, or they met their co-founder in a really kind of serendipitous way. And it's very humble, the beginning, because you start with nothing and no one else. And I do envy the co-founders that I've interviewed because they had each other to bounce ideas off, to share the collective stress, to celebrate when things go great. The upside of being a solo founder is that I'm making all the decisions and I don't need to consult anyone. I can just move quickly and make the decisions. And I try to have confidence in my decisions. And that's great when things are going well. But when you've got something not so great happening, and it will happen, I've got some good people that I can talk to, and mentors along the way have been absolutely critical. Just amazing, really. But I still go to bed at night with my own problems. And I have to make the decision. And when you make wrong decisions, but it's okay. If I make a wrong decision, I go, well, this is great because I've learned something. And so how can I fix it? And how can I try to prevent it but it's inevitable. I'm going to make wrong decisions. Everyone does. And responding to what the market wants is something I hope we always do, like not being really stubborn about this is what people want. And if we try something and it doesn't work, then that's okay. We just quietly let it go and we focus on something else that could work. And that's fine. That's what so many businesses do. Like I just recently read Steve Jobs's biography by Walter Isaacson. And, Apple the whole way along tried really ambitious things that just flopped and they just kept going. They just went in a different direction. And to me, that's what a successful company does within reason. You can't burn all your money trying something that's ridiculous. But you have to really listen quickly and move quickly.
Do you think that there is benefit? I've heard that the best businesses just fail. In fact, I think there's a book called Fail Fast. Do you think that there is something to that, putting the thing out there, failing fast, and then moving to the next thing?
Yeah, totally. I'm like, ship it. Just ship it. Our website, started we got an updated website and it wasn't completely ready on our 1-year anniversary, but I was like, do you know what? Let's just share it because I'll fix the other stuff. I think people are fairly forgiving. And I would just, you can become really pedantic and go round and round in circles. And we need to move at speed. Like we publish books in 12 weeks. And so, there's a give and take always. If the client is happy and they have signed off on their blurb, I don't think 4 people need to discuss the definition of which adjective, because you really can in the creative field, things can get bogged down that way. And so I always think, like with social media content, I always say to authors, post and ghost if you must. Like, make the post, don't look at how many counts there are because you're too busy making your next post. Just keep looking forward. If you spend ages, talking to the real whatever, your productivity goes down.
That is such brilliant advice.
I think so. I mean, I don't even remember what I've posted 2 weeks ago because I'm cringing over the next one. Do you know what I mean? Like, just communicate the message and keep going.
Ship it, move it, get out and reiterate. Yeah. If there was one thing that I could say to new business owners, I think that would be it. Just not get over yourself, but just, it's not going to be perfect. The faster you can move and learn and react to the market and get better, the faster you'll get to that place where you're stable and have found what works.
Yeah. And there's a really good book called Buy Back Your Time. I think it's by Dan Martell.
Yeah.
And he says it's all about delegating and stuff like that and the art of delegating. And he's like, you're the founder. No one's going to have the same passionate investment that you have in doing something. He said, do you know what? It's probably going to be 80% as good. And do you know what? 80% is amazing. So ship it and just see the potential that you can do. You just end up in a world of pain for everyone and you slow down the benefits that you get. And I have been delighted with when I delegate something and our staff say, oh, could we do it that way? And I'm like, I should have thought of that. That's great. But there is some anxiety around just saying, no, you just go and do that.
Thank you.
Fortunately, I feel so much lighter that it's almost always gone well. Not all the time. And the training takes heaps of time as well to let it go. So there's a bigger investment before you kind of get pressure relief. But for the most part, you know, that's the thing, like 80%, I'm not going to sit and play on Canva. If you have those tendencies, you've got to let it go.
You do, absolutely. And you just mentioned before one of the things that you've loved is talking to founders and their stories along the way and the lessons they've learned. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned so far?
That you can start to get too busy and then you will not be enjoying yourself. Because I've been very conservative in terms of I've managed things probably past the point where I should have brought someone on, because I'm always like higher overheads. Like I try to maximize my own output and I love it. Like I love the work, the day-to-day work. And so I've waited probably a bit too long. And it was only a couple of weeks ago that I substantially increased a couple of staff members' time. And it had gotten to the point where, you know, my to-do list, I use the to-do app, was stressing me out. I couldn't stay on top of emails because I want us to be super responsive, like same day replies, definitely within 24 hours. When you feel that you can't do that and that your customer service standards are slipping and you just feel really pressured and rushing, I've noticed I was like, oh my God, I've got clients' names wrong in an email.
Which is what your brand.
No,
That's
it's
not
not
your
no.
brand.
And my mind was going to a different kind of place. I also read the Amazon, the Everything store. There was a period in the developers, like a 3-month period, that they have a memory blank. They were working, like sleeping at the office and stuff, trying to get something ready to launch. So they have all these gaps in their memories. And I was like, that is actually happening to me. And so I need to implement some pretty substantial changes so that I have more time and that I can like breathe again and stuff. And so, yeah, realizing that, you know, you have a limit and that you must bring in change or, you know, you'll crash and your customers won't be happy. And I'm not out of the woods with that. I'm feeling much more optimistic that I will do it again. I'll just keep tweaking the hours and then taking more steps back so that I can grow the business, you know, and be strategic and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so many hats you have to wear and so many things you need to tweak along the way. As a growing business, it must be hard to have that thing where you're so busy and you need something to change to fix that. But also then you go, well, cash flow, can I afford to be paying people to do this? How have you managed that in your business?
We're about to begin a new chapter. We're moving to the office. Staff hours have changed. We're looking at all different kinds of ways to make the best books out there.
Yeah.
And I look back on previous months and I say to myself, it's going to be okay because this is what you've made previously and you are moving in the right direction. And if you do X, Y, and Z, like at the moment, we're working on SEO for the website. And so I'm just putting my faith that that's going to have the result that we need, because we want to be publishing, like I'd love to publish 50 books this year, 100 next year, and 200 the year after that. So I do want, you know, really good growth, but also working on financial modeling. I have someone helping me who is, you can then actually look at it, look at the figures and say, this can be done. And I think then I'll exhale.
There's so much safety that comes in having that modeling going. As long as you keep doing those things, then, because I think as a business owner, if you're not an accountant or a financial modeler, you go, I think this is going to be okay, but I'm not an expert in this. So is it going to be okay?
Yeah. And I could also make life easier for myself, because if I know that I have a certain spend, well, then I'll spend it and the results will come, you know, say it's like a marketing bucket or something, instead of a kind of ad hoc, I think this is going to work. So let's try it. I'm probably not doing as much as we could because I am being really conservative. So it'd be nice to take some calculated risks.
Yeah, absolutely. And just that comes back to the humble host type as well. I often find humble hosts are quite conservative in their brand, in their messaging, in their modeling. They prefer to go with something that has in some way been tried or true, or if they are taking a risk that they like, that they're not the throw the spaghetti at the wall sort of founders and just go, look, we'll figure it out. Let's just, risk
No.
everything, see what works. It's like, I've calculated this and I have a good feeling that it's probably going to work before they move forward.
Yeah. And, as a freelancer, I was forever chasing payments and it just did my head in. And I just refuse to be that kind of employer. So if I get an invoice, we're paying the invoice on time. And so it's non-negotiable. It's not like, oh, well, we could just not pay that for a couple of weeks. And then so I'll put that in and then there'll be some more coming in. Like I can't operate that way. People would abandon us as well. If I said, can you, be an editor for us, but we won't pay you on time. Like it's just awful. And it's a horrible way, I think, to run a business. So I'm acutely aware of the bills that need to be paid. And there's a lot of bills that need to be paid.
Of course. And I love this is such an example of how your brand is so much more than just a logo or your website or the colors you use. Your brand is the way you approach business in every way and the way that you take care of not only your authors, but you've said you want to take care of your suppliers as well to create this trust where everybody feels safe to participate in your business. That's
Yeah.
such a strong brand position.
Yeah, I think so. And, word of mouth travels as well. And if you're not a good employer, the creative industry in Australia, like within books and things, like the word would spread that. Because the thing is, like with hybrid publishing, it's kind of a dirty, dirty word. And so I want to do it differently from many different points of view. Hybrid publishers are quite opaque. So you share the cost of producing the book, but the author doesn't really know the full cost of producing the book. And then you share the royalties, but the author isn't privy to that data coming in from bookstores. They kind of drip fed some royalties here and there. And I heard stories where the author's like calculating in their mind that soon they should start to see some royalties from this book that they spent money on publishing. And then the hybrid publisher has said like, oh, we need to redo the cover or, we're going to do a marketing push. So sorry, there'll be a bit more time until you ever see royalties. Some of them are sharks and some of them are thieves and some of them have shut down. There's been stories in Sydney Morning Herald and stuff. So if we are to be a successful business, we have to do it well and be trustworthy in every way that we operate. So that is something that is important to me that we do. And that means always looking to the future and not taking things for granted. Like we may have published 6 books last month, but that doesn't mean that we're going to publish 10 in September.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. So next question is, can you remember the moment when you realized your business had gone from this could be a cool idea to this has got legs?
Yeah, that is such a nice feeling when you feel like you've created something that's like alive and separate from you and like is real. So there was a nice time, and it was only a few weeks ago. I was talking to Mum on the phone. And Mum is always asking about the business and she's so great and encouraging, but she's also like my unofficial CFO. And she's like, don't spend all your money on that. She's like a tough cookie and she's like the agent. She hands out business cards and tells all their friends and stuff. And so we were having a powwow about the business. And then I hung up and I had an author contact me who, just got in touch, total stranger, found your website. Here's my manuscript. I want to publish as soon as possible. And they just sounded incredible. And I took a screenshot and I was like, Mum, while we were talking, look at this person that contacted Hembury Books. And then I went to bed and I woke up the next morning and there were 2 more inquiries. And I was like, Mum, look at this. We're catching fire. Like that's the best feeling. And if I don't get new inquiries, like if it's been a few days, I start to think, okay, what can I do? I've got to bang some drums or something because getting those inquiries, it's like an adrenaline surge. It lights up your brain,
Yeah. Beautiful. And so where do you see Hembury Books in 5 years? I mean, you've said that you sort of how many books you want to publish next year and the year after, but like what's the big 5-year vision?
The big 5-year vision is to be a leading publisher and a publisher of choice for authors for so many reasons that they recognize that, there's a good return on investment for the money that they invest. I want authors to make it back and then some, so that they think this is the publisher I could partner with for my author career. And, dare I say, to show traditional publishers who I think can be resting on their laurels, they have such incredible prestige and they don't have to work for it anymore, to show that there are other ways of doing it that shouldn't be belittled that are valid, that make good business sense in 2025, and that we're thriving, and that we have a place on stage with the likes of Penguin and Hachette and things like that, and that we're taken seriously. We're not called a vanity publisher, and I can chuck away my vanity publisher t-shirt and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And that we are publishing such a substantial number of books that people look at Hembury Books like in an intellectual way. They're like, these books are great books. They're brave and they're true and they're ambitious creatively, like, blended genres. Our authors, like, if it's memoir, they talk about things that I don't think some traditional publishers would touch with a 10-foot barge pole, because that can be confronting and things like that. And I want us to be known as a publisher of good books.
Not just because you're hybrid, but because you tell brilliant
Great.
stories.
Yeah. And that, we're publishing thousands of books every year globally.
And so my last question is, if you had one piece of advice for another humble host founder, what would that be?
Try not to be too hard on yourself, because, you will make mistakes. And I have a very critical inner voice, I've been told, and I chastise myself for that. And I can get kind of down on myself, like nothing is ever good enough, or it's like I'm always impatient for something, and I'll kind of look at our financials and think, we should have done so much better than this. And so I'm always creating stretch goals and stuff that are probably out of reach. Like, yes, I got those first 2 clients on the first day, but we only published like 10 or 12 books the first year. So, and that it takes time to look like a solid business before those strangers will contact you. Like, all the first clients really were kind of, friends of friends. So, and that is just doing business, and you can't expect to kind of, click your fingers and suddenly, you've got all these leads and stuff, and that you'll just have to sweat it out for the early parts. And that doesn't mean that you should give up. I never thought I'd give up, but, there are some moments where you just think, I'm not very good at this. What's going to happen next week or whatever. Just try and calm down a bit and enjoy it and see it as a journey, because it is all just a journey. Where we are this year isn't where we'll be next year or the year after.
Absolutely. You've touched on something so powerful there. I see many business owners as they come in sort of going, if it's not all in place in the first 12 months, then maybe I'm just really not good at it. And especially humble host types are renowned for having that critical voice, like nothing I do is good enough and I'm going to let everyone down. But to be really like, we've really got this locked in, can take a number of years to get it really solidified.
No, because it's like being a child, like learning to walk and to read and to write. Like, no one gets it straight away. And there's some fun in that too. Like, there's some things you do that are just wrong and funny, because I'm like, what was I even thinking? And just laugh at yourself and then pick yourself up and move on and try something different.
So treat you, as your business is growing and it's, growing from a baby business to an adolescent, also treat yourself like, you were a 2-year-old that needs a big hug and some love.
Yeah. And you do need parents around you to help you out. And so finding those people who can help you and answer your questions and stuff, and they're not silly questions. But yeah, I do get the kind of, oh, I'm sorry to be asking this.
It's all valid and we're all learning. And when you come into business, you think you're going to be doing one thing, and then you very quickly find out just how many hats that you have to wear, and you can't be an expert at all of them. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Jessica. And if other people want to go and have a look at your website, Hembury Books, if they're another humble host business owner, if they would like to publish their own book, they can find you at hemburybooks.com.au, and I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Thanks, Naomi. It was really nice talking to you.